In the past I have talked about and given the inner alchemist's point of view on non-organic beings. I have said that there can be generally from the human perspective two types of these, which are predatory and non-predatory, meaning that some need or crave human energy, while others are more like winds that may affect the human world, as a strong wind might affect the leaves of a tree, but they are not for the most part interested in humanity as such. I have also said that there are different gradations of these, with some being as small as tiny plankton or fish, while others can be of massive, indeed titanic, proportions, and further that some of these non-organic life forms, this kind of awareness without a physical body, can be so complex intellectually, that they far surpass human intelligence and understanding. Within that complexity of non-organic life, and depending on the different requirements that this strange other life requires, there can develop all sorts of human to non-organics interactions and relationships. In this particular video, I am going to discuss the intriguing relationship between certain highly developed human adepts and some of these very complex and highly intelligent non-organic entities. In particular, I will discuss the relationships established between certain sorcerers, magicians, inner alchemists of different currents from mine, and non-organic entities of great power and cunning. To be more precise, I have in the past mentioned my knowledge of those human adepts that make pacts, as it were, energetic pacts, with non-organic life in order to acquire greater power. Such practitioners are in particular interested in overcoming the gravity of this world with the assistance of powerful other non-organic life. Generally, this non-organic other life is another order, another type of existence that is completely of another world, another stable and cohesive other dimension, that is completely separate from this one that we refer to as the physical world. But that other world, all worlds, have many connecting doors, you might say, that can allow that other life to come into this dimension, to witness it, sometimes feed from it, and in some ways, under certain favorable, or not so favorable at times I suppose, circumstances, affect this dimension in small individual or large global ways. As a general rule, humanity is for the most part far less aware of this other non-organic life, this other non-organic other world, while they, that non-organic other life, are for the most part completely aware of humanity, the energetically rich physical world. So, being that we physical beings are energy-rich, due to our physical natures, some of the more predatory of this non-organic other life look at us and crave that energy, and they can take full advantage of this ability to see us even though most of us don't see them, and in that way manipulate the human world in order to feed on that excess physical energy. Even though most of humanity is not aware of this other non-organic life, some people are aware of this other life, either because they are naturally gifted, or because they have relentlessly focused in a direction that has allowed such people to acquire the power and the methodology, the techniques, that can make that other life observable. Moreover, some of these people have even developed ways to communicate with, interact with, this other life, and have done so, continue to do so, in order to acquire more and more power. But all such power comes with a price, especially when such practitioners begin to communicate with and work with really complex and highly intelligent non-organic life. In this video, I am focusing on those human practitioners that use such interactions with non-organic entities to overcome the biggest obstacle of this world, which is death. Such practitioners, having perhaps mastered a number of lesser gravity, or inconveniences, let's say, of this physical world, finally get to the biggest human problem, which is death, and to that end they turn to those affiliations that they have established with their non-organic allies, and such friends are ready, willing and able to provide extraordinary solutions to this biggest problem. Now, how these affiliations are established and how they work is not something that I can tackle in detail here, but I will note that there are many ways to make contact with such non-organic beings, which basically boils down to they come here, or you go there. And such methodology can take the form of occult ritual, worship, and the ingestion of certain plants and drugs. And that at the heart of all of this methodology is the ability to expand awareness and tap into the odd angles all around us, and in this way open a door for them or travel through a door yourself, to meet them in dimensions far more dynamic than this physical one. Once stable and congruent contact is established, which can take a human lifetime if it is done properly, these practitioners that want to cheat death through energetic contract with other alien life will then most likely be enticed to trust more and more in their non-organic allies, as these allies begin to show their human cohorts the incredible possibilities available to them, if they only trust more, give up more. And by entice, I mean that more and more of these practitioners' essence is pulled away from this earthly dimension and moved into other places, where new possibilities are made available while in the care of their non-organic allies. And I say while in their care, because what is seldom mentioned in occult manuals, at least to my limited knowledge anyway, is that such contracts quite literally mean that the human practitioner, if these alliances are established, will be either in part, their astral body, or physical body and all, be moved beyond this physical dimensional zone, and quite literally transported inside the non-organic entity. To explain this in better detail, the best analogy would be to think of a non-organic entity on this level of complexity as a kind of trans-dimensional cube, or better yet perhaps like a kind of small, relatively sized hollow asteroid or planetoid. The human adept in this case begins to transition from physical life to a life beyond physicality, cocooned inside this hollow asteroid, which is occupying space in the dimension where these non-organic beings inhabit. What I am saying here is that according to the seeing of inner alchemists, such an energetic contract means that the human adept is slowly but unrelentingly moved from the earthly dimension to this other dimension through the adept's efforts and the non-organic entity's power. The energetic contract states that the adept moves from this world, this human cage, and into another in a way, into the cage that is the non-organic itself, that is inside the non-organic itself. And we could further ask, what is moved? Is it the body? How? Well, using the terminology that I have been using thus far, I would say that it is that adept's ghost in their machine that is being slowly moved, but in a more traditional sense you could say that it starts with the astral body, that is, as the astral body, as it learns to move to this other place and becomes more and more solid there, until a point comes when it is more solid there than the physical body is here, until a time comes when the dark adept is more there than here, and, finally, just there, and no longer here. But where is this other place? Where is the home of these other non-physical yet alive beings? That place is beyond this physical here and now position, or any here and now position possibly understood by modern rational humanity. It is instead best described as the place where dreams happen, or at least it would be better to say that the dream time is a common place that is easily accessible to the adept and to the non-organic entities, and it is there that they meet to move deeper and deeper into unknown dimensions where such non-organics truly live. There, in that other world, the astral body, or the ghost as I call it in my coursebooks, of this human adept begins to experience the fulfillment of any and all the desires that they have ever had, and if they are still not fully encased inside the non-organic entity, meaning that the physical body is still in the physical world, meaning that they have not died to the physical world yet, then these human adepts may begin to use the power that the non-organic allies have given them to bend the human world to their desire. This is where these dark adepts get their power, but as you might suspect, such power is quite costly, and time is constantly running out for these dark human souls and their Machiavellian and highly dangerous schemes. Such human adepts will in time transition fully to a life lived inside the non-organic cocoon, and when this happens their physical bodies will be gone from the physical realm. To the people that can only see the physical world, that can't use their inner senses as I have described in other videos and in my coursebooks, such practitioners will seem to die a physical death, or they may just disappear one day. There may even be stories of how, at one point after dealing with evil demons and gods for a lifetime, such a terrible magician was said to have one day been attacked by some evil thing, consumed, and never heard from again. And when one of these scenarios does happen, such dark or left-hand path magicians will be dead to the physical human world, sometimes physical body and all, but certainly their ghost, that which is beyond just the physical, that part that some may call the astral body or the soul I suppose, will transition fully into a life lived in a kind of symbiotic relationship with the non-organic ally, a life lived inside this entity, permanently. Now, why would the non-organic want this? The human adept wants power and eventually immortality, so that seems like an easy answer, but why would the non-organic help the dark adept? Well, they want power also, but in the form of a highly specialized energetic food that only such a dark adept can provide. The non-organic wants to milk the human sorcerer in a way, it wants the brilliance from a human lifetime. And not just any energy, it wants the highly refined energy that a sorcerer of this aptitude and character can provide. The average person is not good enough, they need the highly refined energy that an adept like this can provide. And because of the specialness of this human symbiote, the non-organics are willing to thrill, wow, and help that magician, that sorcerer by showing them the marvels of their part of infinity. And finally and most importantly, they show those dark adepts a way to cheat human death. But can such a dark, from the human perspective, sorcerer live forever? Does the non-organic truly offer a perfect life and true immortality? The straightforward answer is no. As I explain in detail in my book, The Way of the Death Defier, all things that cannot move beyond the black sun will die. Even these non-organic entities will die unless they can escape the black sun, and in order to move past the black sun, or at least stay away from its constant pull, they must continually have more and more energy of a highly refined nature, and this is the reason for the contract with the human symbiote. But even though such a non-organic being may live for what may seem to be an eon, from a human point of view, being that we humans live short brilliant lives, at least compared to the complex non-organic entities that I am discussing in this video, these non-organics do eventually die, and these human sorcerers of extra and refined energy do lose their energy over time as well, being that they cannot easily replenish the energy that they are continually losing as time carries on in relentless fashion, and as they are milked by the non-organic host. Neither can escape the great black sun forever. Therefore, and even though it may be a longer life, total death will always follow. Such a symbiotic relationship between these dark adepts and their non-organic hosts are highly complicated and full of deceit, strife, and constant secretive battle, as the non-organic tries to eat as much from the adept as possible, and as the adept tries to keep as much of their power as they can, while trying to take magical knowledge and ability from the non-organic cocoon, with the least amount given up. So, can such a dark adept, dark alchemist as one of my readers called them, have a chance at true immortality? This is a hard question to answer simply, because the human world's conception of time is so limited, but, being that as I have said, even these highly complex and extremely long-lived non-organic entities must eventually die, and they certainly do die, then it is the case that these particular formerly human individuals that align themselves with such beings, must die as well. Generally speaking, such relationships usually involve not so much eternal life, but a kind of increased lifespan then, that from the human point of view can seem to be almost eternal, certainly lasting thousands of years under particular circumstances. These particular circumstances have to do with the power level of the individual, that is, the length of the lifespan and power of such dark alchemists is directly proportional with the kind of power that this adept has, and the power that they can develop before and during their allegiance with such non-organic entities. For the most part though, and this is my opinion only, I find that all such allegiances tend to be an infinitely martial and strategic and Machiavellian game, where such entities do their best to in the end take advantage of those that align with them. In other words, they are constantly trying to completely devour their caged dark alchemists. And on the other side of the coin, those dark alchemists that are crazy enough and powerful enough to enter into such energetic contracts are forever stuck in another cage, another cube world, inside their new masters, which they fight to use and extricate themselves from, like a demon trying to cheat hell. As you might imagine then, it is the case that many of these dark alchemists that align themselves with these non-organic entities tend to have a very martial, warlike attitude. They are like the human definition of left-hand path sorcerers, in that they are individuals that deeply enjoy the endless battle as it were, that such allegiances bring with them. They feel more alive because of them. They quite literally live for them, and such endless battle and suffering becomes pleasure. So, for a certain select few, these are endless adventures of the most predatory kind, a further twist or angle, on an already odd angle, a thrilling battle and a suffering that is joy to them, in the manifold strange angles found in the endless pursuit of what I term the third room of the projectionist, which they might term the joy of the immolation of the flesh. Immortality for such dark riders of infinite shadowy pleasure is very seldom possible. To find true immortality beyond the colossal and endless gravity of the black sun, such dark alchemists would need to fight a double battle, where they are engaged in trying to cross the many rooms that are left for them to cross, as explained in the course book mentioned earlier, while at the same time endlessly battling against those forces that they have complicated symbiotic allegiances with, meaning trying to desperately escape from within the bowels of the hell that they find themselves in. It is sort of like trying to fight the massive gravity of a black hole while inside a giant monster's stomach that is slowly eating you. This is their constant struggle, a thrilling one from their point of view, a full life for such twisted beings, that is twisted from the path that I follow, as they fight in their endless kind of hell, their new more complicated prisons and agony, and in time even agony is joy as long as it is not death and oblivion, as they fight for eternal power and a kind of eternal life that will most likely always elude them. And yet, oh we humans and our endless hope. And yet, my way is another current, and to me such battles are endless folly, but to them, to the elite few of them, it is a pleasure beyond pain, and such beings are kin in a distant way, and even though I am not of them, I respect them in their unrelenting focus and ability, and hope for them the best in this dark and lonely corner of eternity. If you are interested in learning more about the after-death experience, the ghost in the machine, and the many facets of the other worlds that we must face during this after-physical life journey, I will leave a link to the coursebook mentioned in the video, The Way of the Death Defier, in the video description.